Days 9 and 10. We're really bad at this.
We are.
Yeah. Well, we're just really bad at remembering to do it every night.
Yeah.
Pretty much every night we're like, oh dang, we forgot to do that. We'll do 2 days work tomorrow. And then we almost forgot today. It's bedtime, we're tired.
Yeah.
So, days 9 and 10. What did we do?
Well, we woke up the morning, Monday morning, at the 320 Guest Ranch.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And had their breakfast, which was good.
It was good.
It was odd because it was kind of Southwest Mexican themed. I mean, like tortillas and chorizo and eggs and shredded pork that was seasoned.
But
It was
also
good.
cereal. I had Raisin Bran. It was delicious.
It was good. It was good.
Coffee.
Anyway,
for cowboys.
We checked out of there and went immediately after leaving there to Earthquake Lake, which is just outside of Yellowstone in the National Forest area. And basically it's this large lake that has a dam that spills into a river. And this river was flowing freely, and there's campgrounds along it and such, and cabins. And in 1959,
August 17th, 1959 at 11:37 p.m. They tell you that a lot.
7.5 on the Richter scale is what this earthquake was.
Mm-hmm.
And it was centered right underneath the lake. And
Hegbert Lake?
Hegden. H-E-G, oh heck, I don't know.
Some kind of H
Anyway.
word.
Hebden Lake. Anyway, in this area, then all this disturbances happened across it from either the ground sinking, the whole lake tilted 20 foot,
19 feet to be exact.
19 feet. So the one side of the lake came up 19 feet, and the other side, I guess, went down. And so a lot of like what was underwater is now just really flat, desolate land. And then you can see a lot of trees that were buried back then still.
The fault blocks shifted, so there's, I don't remember what those are called now.
Scarfs. Something like that, scarfs.
Something like that, where you can see these like 10 to 20 foot walls where just earth dropped.
Yeah, where the earth was just side by side like this, and all of a sudden it just... So now there's like a cliff there, and so like it created waterfalls and everything else. Scarp. I don't know.
It's like an earth scar, basically.
Anyway, one of the other things that happened was when the lake tilted, it created a seiche.
Multiple seiches, which are
Seiche.
like lake tsunamis, slow moving, humongous waves.
And so one of the things that did, besides inundate the campgrounds and cabins that were around the lake, was it swept multiple cabins off the shore where they sat, and they floated out into the lake, and they settled different places or were displaced further upland. And so there's still like the remnants of some of those left around that we were able to see.
It was really interesting. They had the stories of the people, like the one cabin that you can still see. I mean, the roof is chilling in the lake. I can't believe that it's held up this long because this has been 60 years ago. It was like a 70-something-year-old woman, and said she just woke up in the middle of the night and was like, I better get out of my house right now. And by the time she got to the front door with her dog, which was like an Alaskan Malamute or something like that, she opened the door and the whole cabin was splitting away from the land, and she had to like leap 5 feet to make it over water to get onto land and then scurry up onto higher ground. And her cabin's still there in the lake. It's crazy.
Yep. But I guess the biggest thing, and why they call it Earthquake Lake, a new lake was formed from the river that came out of Hebden Lake because a half of a mountain sheared off and slid down into the valley, and it happened extremely fast. I mean, 80 million tons of earth, rock, soil, slid off this mountainside down into the river valley in the matter of 0.2 seconds. It came down so fast that it created a displacement of air that made hurricane force winds that blew through the campgrounds that were adjacent, blowing the clothes right off of the people that were down there.
They said up to 100-mile-per-hour wind, air force, from this like sheer just landmass sweeping down, and that dammed the river.
Damn river, but it also created like another tsunami type thing from hitting the river, which washed several of the campsites away. And then it dammed the river, and I believe it continued to fill after it dammed the river. It continued to fill until it started to overflow. I think it was like 3 weeks later, but it filled at a rate of 9 feet per day.
Per day.
9 feet per day it was filling. It also cracked the dam of the upper lake, but it didn't make it fail. They brought in the Corps of Engineers immediately because they were worried that if it was uncontrolled, how it overtopped this not artificial, but this new dam that came down because of the landslide, it could be catastrophic. And all that lake could go down into the valley and wipe out neighborhoods, towns, whatever. So the Corps of Engineers came in and built a controlled spillway so they could release this water. And since then, since it was finally full all the way and they had this controlled spillway, it has now continued to erode out, and that's their plan, is that they want it to continue to erode out over the years. And it has now dropped 20 feet down from what it initially was.
In 60 years.
In 60 years. And eventually the plan is that it'll erode that valley back out all the way down to where it's just the original river path. And there will be no lake there. The upper lake will still be there because it's got a man-made dam.
I'm imagining that'll take a long time because the deepest part of this lake is like 120 feet deep. So 20 feet over 60 years, you do the math. But eventually, things should be back to the way they were.
Really interesting. Really interesting.
It was. It took up a pretty good part of our morning, but I'm fine with it. We went to the visitor center and watched their little video. And it's kind of neat the way they have it set up. It's outside the park, and from the beginning of the lake all the way up to where the landslide happened, which is where the visitor center is set up, they have these little markers that you kind of just pull off the road and read these little interesting facts. Like they have one set up where that lady's cabin was in the lake, and you could go down and look at the cabin, and then they had one set up, you have like the memorial boulder thing up at the top. I think total there was 6 or 8 of these locations that you stopped off. And
there was like a story about an old lady who was in her cabin and woke up feeling funny, and she just knew she had to get out of her cabin for some reason in the middle of the night, so she went to her front door, and her front door was jammed shut, and that was right when the earthquake hit, and so she had like a boost of adrenaline and kicked the door out. So she kicked the door out and jumped because her house was already airborne, sliding away from the shore, going into the lake. So she had to jump to shore.
5 feet.
5 feet, and she had a dog with her that jumped as well.
It was a mountain.
And she watched her cabin go floating off across the lake. And I guess the next morning she was talking to the rangers or whatever, whoever was there rescuing, and her cabin goes floating by. And it was, submerged up to the roof line. And they're like, well, it looks pretty intact. And she said, well, I hope it is, because my teeth are on the counter right next to the sink.
Tough old bird. The campground. So this campground, well, the rock slide came through and buried like 19 people alive. 28 people total died in this earthquake, but 19 people got buried alive in the landslide. And one of the things that I was just, on one of the pull-offs when you're looking at this big giant scarp, if that's what it's called, it's a campground, and they said there was a picnic table, and where the land dropped, the picnic table stayed up, and this giant boulder came rolling down the land, and there was a family there, and there was a tent that had 3 kids in it, and then the tent that had the parents, and the giant boulder water came down and crushed the parents and left the kids in the other tent completely unharmed. It's so sad.
Yeah.
The whole thing was really sad, but interesting to learn about. So after that, we went into West Yellowstone.
Yep, which is just a massive tourist trip.
It's basically like mini Branson without the rides.
3 blocks long of
Yeah.
Branson.
It's just a bunch of t-shirt shops where you should probably double check whether the logos are spelled correctly or in the middle of the shirt. But whatever. We needed lunch, so we stopped at a little diner. It was like a 50s style diner.
Mm-hmm.
We're really tired of fried food at this point. We
Yeah.
don't really eat that anymore. And the first couple days, it was like, yeah, vacation. We're not on a diet right now. And now we're just like, I would sell my left foot for a salad.
A good one. A
Ugh.
good salad.
I'm so tired of fried food. My face is breaking out. Anyway, so we finished up at the diner and left, and then we went into Yellowstone.
Yep.
And we stopped as we were driving, so we entered in on the west entrance, and when we were coming up to the north entrance, because that's where our cabin
Northeast entrance, yep.
Yeah.
Northwest entrance, I'm sorry.
not our cabin, tiny house that we're staying in.
That you see right here?
This is our tiny house. It's 400 square feet and it's precious. Interesting artwork, but whatever. So we kind of were just exploring through Yellowstone everything that we could in that little loop, which was Mammoth Hot Springs and a little bit of the Norris Geyser Basin.
Yeah, the upper Norris Geyser Basin, we saw several things. The artist paint pots.
Boiling mud, which sounds stupid, but is so cool.
It's mesmerizing.
It is. We
You
could
just sit there and
watched
just
it all
watch
day.
mud
It's
boil.
like ASMR, except whenever you're being followed by Beast Mom and her troop of homeschooled children. Oh my God! Like we were being miseducated.
She had the voice of the guy from Happy Gilmore with the nail out of his forehead.
She used to be a man. I'm pretty sure about
Come here, kids!
it. Do you guys know why this is bubbling? And where's the water coming from? Shut up! Oh my God, we're horrible people. I don't care.
They were really annoying kids.
So everywhere that you go in this thermal area, though, in the Norris Geyser Basin in Yellowstone, they have boardwalks, and there are clear signs everywhere that says, "Do not step off of the boardwalk," because it's basically, in so many words, a very thin crust of earth with boiling earth underneath. I mean, it's a giant volcano that you're standing on. And a couple of times John's like, I just want to touch it. And I was like, absolutely not, you're not going to touch it. And then we walked by a lady who was sitting on the side of a boardwalk looking at the bottom of her shoe because she doesn't follow directions well. And the ground melted the bottom of her shoes. Melted them. So you can't step off the boardwalk.
I wouldn't want to step off. I just want to like put my hand just above the ground to feel the heat on the ground. Not of the water. Obviously, it's hot. I just didn't know if the ground was transmitting the heat because there was like grasses growing and stuff.
The answer is yes. It melts shoes. So we will not step off the boardwalks.
No.
No. So
There was a couple geysers there, little ones.
little baby ones. It smells like rotten eggs. Very, very sulfur smelling, which makes sense. We're going to explore a little bit more of the geysers tomorrow. But we had to kind of skip out from there and make our way up to Mammoth. So we went up to Mammoth Hot Springs, which there's not a ton that had to be explored there. Just a little walk kind of around these, what is that called?
Travertine terraces.
It was really neat, actually. It looks like ice, but it's not ice. It's like, what is it?
It's the volcano superheats the water and sulfur in the ground and makes sulfuric acid steam, and it dissolves limestone that's underground and boils that water limestone acid mixture up to the surface, and when it gets up top it cools and that limestone comes out of suspension and deposits itself over time, just kind of like growing a rock candy or something. Same principle. And it makes these terraces, and the way it forms, it's what we call travertine when you mine it.
It almost just looks geometrical though. It's so weird. Like it's not smooth with colored layers like you see in different mountains. It looks like blocks, like almost little steps or terraces, and then it has these little pools in it, and different areas have grown different algae, so it looks like ice or like solid ash rock, white, but with these streaks of orange down it, and then these bright ice blue pools that are steaming out of the top of it. It's just really crazy. And in that whole area, you can see how that's kind of the big thing here is they're talking about with it being a volcano, it's an ever-changing landscape. And you can totally see where, I don't know at what point, but there was the more active areas in the hot springs where now it's just these mountains, but there's no water or steam or anything actively coming out of it. And it's just kind of moved to different places. As you get to the top, you can kind of see different holes that are no longer active. So we're just kind of wondering, like, how often does this change? If we came back next year, would it be steaming in different places, or is it like every decade? Is it every 3 weeks? Like, when does how?
It looks like they went through like a pretty good expense of trying to locate the boardwalks near what was active. And it's clear that these were the most recent active ones, but they aren't active anymore. And where the newest active ones are, there's no paths near them at all.
No, but
so.
I mean, I imagine that it won't be long before they do construct something around it because, I mean, at best, they have to put some kind of fence or something up. I mean, it's literally boiling water coming out of the earth.
And it's not that massive of an amount. I mean, it's, you know, it's a fair amount, but we're not talking like it's creating a stream. It's like a gentle fountain that's cascading.
It's really interesting to watch. It looks like those fountains maybe at like the botanical gardens where it's kind of over like a washboard type thing.
We also saw a very large geyser and steam vent. I can't remember the name of it.
I can't either.
But I mean,
it
it
wasn't
just
Calcite Springs. No, it was another one, but it's one of the hottest ones in Yellowstone, and you could just feel the heat coming off of it, and it was really.
It was discharging a lot of water,
Mm-hmm.
and it was flowing on underneath the road and stuff, and then it had a separate hole up above it that it was just discharging steam, and the steam was coming out with such power. It was just, you know, it was making a roar, just a deep roar of the steam exiting out of the ground.
This is like a different planet. It is crazy, absolutely crazy. I'm really excited to see some more of that tomorrow. When we go back through the Geyser Basin, we only made it through a couple stops there because we really wanted to see Mammoth, because that's the section of the park or near the park that we're staying in currently. Today we went and we did the Beartooth Highway. Is that what it's called? Beartooth Pass?
Beartooth Pass.
So
Beartooth
we
Highway.
drove up.
We went through the Serengeti of Yellowstone also.
Yes, and we saw.
That's the Lamar Valley.
And we saw buffalo, and we saw elk, and we saw pronghorn, and we saw bears. That was awesome. Probably the highlight of my day was seeing that bear down in that little gulch or whatever. And then from there is when we went and did the Beartooth Highway, which involved driving up a 12,000 foot mountain, almost 13,000 foot. It made my tum-tum hurt a little bit. I got a little lightheaded.
It was way up there. It was windy and cold.
So cold. We got some awesome pictures. And then
Pictures do no justice. I mean, until like virtual reality and 3D can be brought into sharing pictures, there's no way you can even begin to describe through a photo what
just how
you
big
see.
it is, the texture of things and the
vastness.
color and the depth of it. I mean, even in all the pictures we took at waterfalls and things today, it's just, it really does it absolutely no justice at all whatsoever.
And from the top of that mountain, you can see into 3 states. You can see into Idaho, Wyoming, and Montana. Well, the mountain's actually in Montana, so it's not that hard. But it's just, you can see, I bet, easily 100 miles, where the horizon is.
It was crazy. So after we left, came back down the mountain and into the park, we stopped and had some sandwiches at Warm Creek. Was it warm, John?
It was not warm.
It's not warm there.
That was a misnomer.
Yeah. So we left Warm Creek and then drove back through the Lamar Valley and into Canyon Village.
Had baby bison right next to you. You got some photos of it.
Yes, we got to see some more animals, mammals. Into Canyon Village. So then we went to the visitor center. Had to stop and get some ice creams, and then we went to the Yellowstone.
Well, at Canyon we didn't get any.
No.
Canyon we just did a little hike down to the or not a canyon. What was the other one called? The first place we stopped, not the canyon place. Then we did the hike down to the river.
Oh God, yeah. I don't. We dropped the camera. Everything's fine. I don't remember now what it was called.
It wasn't the canyon. Canyon was where we went next.
Yeah, well,
But-
that's where we got ice cream at
Yeah.
the canyon.
Yeah.
But I don't remember.
Tower?
Tower Junction?
Tower Falls.
Tower Falls. We stopped at Tower Falls, and John was like, "Oh, let's do this little 0.8 mile hike." Well, it was 0.8 miles, but it was a 400-foot elevation change at 8,000 feet, so you can't breathe, and it was just covered in people who are from other places, which, yay, diversity, but clearly in these other places,
There's no personal bubble.
nobody gives a crap about personal space. There's so many people in your personal space all the time, and I'm just not fine with that. But whatever. So it was hot, and also we couldn't breathe, and also there were people everywhere. But it was pretty.
So then we headed on down south to the Canyon Lands, or the Canyon Visitor Center. Stopped and got gas because we were getting a little half empty, and then went over to that visitor center and looked at some of the souvenirs in the store, and stopped to the visitor center just to go to the restroom, and got some good advice on where to go see the best overview of the canyon. So we left there and followed their advice and went to the Artist Point,
Which is supposed to be the best view of the canyon and the waterfall.
on the south rim of the canyon. Again, pictures will not do justice because you don't get the depth of it.
Right. But it was beautiful.
It was beautiful. It was, a half mile across and at least a half mile deep.
Crazy.
Very big canyon, very big waterfall. You could feel the rumble and the power of it. So we saw that. That was cool. We left there and went up the road a little bit to another stopping point.
To the upper rim.
The upper rim
North rim.
of
Upper Falls.
Upper Falls, Uncle Tom's Lookout.
Okay.
And we hiked I don't even say hike, we walked the path they had there to see the lookout of the falls there. And there was another one that took even closer. We were walking down the path there, and Kelly makes me stop all of a sudden.
Because there was Mommy and two little baby deer just walking down the sidewalk. It was so cute. We got really good pictures of those too. But
So we stood really still, and they continued coming towards us. We first saw them probably 50 yards away, and they crossed a little bridge, and they kept walking towards us, and like real skittish, but we stayed perfectly still, and they walked all the way up, probably within about 10 foot of us, and went by us. Their ultimate goal was to go where we would come from.
we got some really good pictures. Really, really good pictures. That's probably the closest I've ever been to a deer in my life.
And these were mule deer, so they had a little bit bigger ears, and they were a little bit bigger. deer than whitetail, but it was neat. The babies still had spots on them, so they were definitely yearlings.
Got some good pictures of those. So then we kept going all the way down to the overlook for the upper part of the waterfall. Got some good pictures and video there. And then we left and went back through Mammoth Hot Springs to the upper terrace that we didn't get to see yesterday. And then came back here. Oh, no. Then we stopped and took a couple of sunset pictures, and then
Some pictures of some elk.
Yes, we did pass by some elk, and we got some good pictures of those.
And then we also got some more elk pictures while they were eating grass by the visitor center.
Right, at Mammoth. We stopped at the Mammoth Terrace. I don't remember what it was even called.
Cafe.
Something, whatever, where we were forced to eat more fried food. John had a grilled fish sandwich. I had chicken tenders. You know, it is what it is. We left there and then saw the other elk and then took some sunset pictures, and then we came back here, and I've been vegging on this couch under a blanket since then. John has been, we bought like a 6-pack of tea, like bottled tea. They don't know how to do tea here. I know we've talked about this previously, but everywhere that you go, tea tastes like water. Like, I get it when we're up north, nobody has sweet tea, which is fine because we don't even drink sweet tea anymore. We drink regular tea, we put like Sweet and Low in it. Also, they don't believe in Sweet and Low here, so we basically have to shove Sweet and Low in our pockets before we go in anywhere. But we bought a 6-pack of tea, and we also bought tea bags, and John just spent like an hour brewing so much tea in this teeny tiny coffee pot to replace all of the other tea that we bought so that we can refill our cups with good tea for the rest of the time we're here. We need tea. There's so many.
We need caffeine.
We need it hard. So now we have good tea for the rest of the trip. I wish we'd have thought of this earlier, now that it's day 10. But that's it, I think, for today. We're going to be heading to bed. Tomorrow it's out of the tiny house and on our way to
Grant
Village Lodge, which has no air conditioning, which would have been fine up until tomorrow, but the high tomorrow I think is like 87. Great. Also no TV and I think no Wi-Fi. So it's fine. We're going to have a really rustic experience. It's for 2 days.
We do have some Netflix downloaded on the computer.
We were prepared for this. So
hopefully we can maybe have a fan or something. I don't know. Hopefully there's a fan in the room.
it's going to be okay. We don't like being hot.
No.
We're going to figure it out. So I guess we will check back in with you tomorrow, or maybe Thursday, or maybe